and Ray Story 1 and Ray Story 2. And race. No. Story. 3. And Ray Story 3. Yes, and Ray Story 3. And Ray Story 4. And Ray Story 5. And Ray Story 6. And Ray Story 7. And Ray Story 8. And Ray Story 9. And Ray Story 10. And Ray Story 11. And Ray Story 12. And Ray Story 13. And Ray Story 14. And Ray Story 15. And Ray Story 16. And Ray Story 17. And Ray Story 18. And Ray Story 19. And Ray Story 20. And Ray Story 21. And Ray Story 22. And Ray Story 23. And Ray Story 24. And Ray Story 25. And Ray Story 26. And Ray Story 27. And Ray Story 28. And Ray Story 29. And Ray Story 30. And Ray Story 31. And Ray Story 32. And Ray Story 33. And Ray Story 34. And Ray Story 35. And Ray Story 36. And Ray Story 37. And Ray Story 38. And Ray Story 39. And Ray Story 40. And Ray Story 41. And Ray Story 42. And Ray Story 43. And Ray Story 44. And Ray Story 45. And Ray Story 46. And Ray Story 47. And Ray Story 48. And Ray Story 49. And Ray Story 50. And Ray Story 51. And Ray Story 52. And Ray Story 53. And Ray Story 54. And Ray Story 55. And Ray Story 56. And Ray Story 57. And Ray Story 58. And Ray Story 59. And Ray Story 16. And Ray Story 61. And Ray Story 62. And Ray Story 63. And Ray Story 64. And Ray Story 65. And Ray Story 66. And Ray Story 67. No, not this 67. This sucks. It's a Ray Story. And Ray Story 68. And Ray Story 69. And Ray Story 70. And Ray Story 71. And Ray Story 72. And Ray Story 73. And Ray Story 74. And Ray Story 75. And Ray Story 76. And Ray Story 77. And Ray Story 78. And Ray Story 79. And Ray Story 80. And Ray Story 81. And Ray Story 82. And Ray Story 83. And Ray Story 84. And Ray Story 85. And Ray Story 86. And Ray Story 87. And Ray Story 88. And Ray Story 89. And Ray Story 90. And Ray Story 91. And Ray Story 92. And Ray Story 93. And Ray Story 94. And Ray Story 95. And Ray Story 96. And Ray Story 97. And Ray Story 98. And Ray Story 99. and Ray Story 100.